from those Republican senators that we've been monitoring, we want to share the anti-Israel protesters that have spread to college campuses are now the hot topic among our nation's top lawmakers. And they're going after President Biden hard. Senator Kennedy from Louisiana really making some points on that. And right now, there is police presence on multiple campuses after anti-Israel rioting. Jewish hate exploded overnight. UCLA, the focal point, violent brawl there for 3 hours before cops stepped in. Riot police did finally storm in. And at Columbia University, where the world waited and watched to see what would happen in our nation's most populous city, the NYPD raided the building overnight that they had taken over and arrested more than 100 people. The scenes were shocking as we watched. Finally, the groups of people who would want to hate and kill people of Jewish faith and act like the terrorists of Hamas were outnumbered by the cops of NYPD. President Biden, MIA. Senator Tom Cotton called him out on that at a news conference that we've been covering for you moments ago. Let's watch.
At George Washington University, they called for the final solution and posted signs saying they wouldn't leave until Jews go back to their real homes. And look at some of the consequences. At Columbia, a rabbi had to tell students that the university was no longer safe for Jews. At UCLA, Hamas sympathizers blocked Jewish students from attending classes and assaulted Jewish students. USC canceled its graduation out of fear of pro-Hamas riots. It's time to stop these anti-Semitic pro-Hamas mobs today. And if liberal college administrators won't take action, the mayors and the governors of these campuses should. And so should Joe Biden. When will the president himself, not his mouthpieces, condemn these hate-filled little Gazas? President Biden needs to denounce Hamas's campus sympathizers without equivocating about Israelis fighting a righteous war of survival.
And that's how we start Outnumbered today. I'm Harris Faulkner, here with my co-host Kayleigh McEnany and Emily Campagno. Joining us today, Cheryl Casoni, host of American Dream Home on Fox Business, and Fox and Friends co-host Brian Kilmeade, also host of the Brian Kilmeade radio show. We joined each other this morning a little bit earlier. And One Nation with Brian Kilmeade on Saturdays. Brian, I do come to you first. You and I watched the mayor of New York earlier together from your studio. He said some things that surprised me. And then reflexively went back to, well, I don't know what's going to happen next if it happens again.
Outside forces, the thing that stuck with me, and he had a long speech, and it was good to see someone speak extemporaneously and choose to do it at 9 o'clock in the morning, saying, I have something to say last night, I'm going to start today. We wish we got that from the White House. I don't even care if the message was bad of the White House. They should have a message. But speaking of this mayor, he says there's forces on the outside looking to corrupt our youth. Yeah. And that's what you keep in mind. There's some people on the outside are going into these campuses, and people on the outside are funding people to go into these campuses. We have to take a step back and look at the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation. Look at George Soros and his group, these Palestinians for Liberation groups. And just ask yourself, do we want them to dictate what America thinks? Or do we actually want to say in what people learn and what our next generation thinks? Because they not only hate the Jewish Americans, they not only hate Israel, they hate our country.
Yes,
that's a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, you're talking about the Students for Justice in Palestine. That is a specific group that they have been looking at. And a student that I talked with last hour from Columbia University named them too. He said, I don't have proof of that, but that's what I'm hearing here on campus, paying for the tents and doing all of that. You've got information on the numbers.
Well, look, I mean, follow the money, obviously, to Brian's point. And, you know, we had a Department of Treasury official back in November testify in front of Congress and say that these groups needed to be investigated because where they're getting their funding. Many of them don't file tax returns. That's the easiest way to track where the funding is coming from, but they do not, these smaller groups. The Rockefeller brothers, that foundation in particular, $100,000 to one of these pro-Palestinian groups. One other point.
Wow.
Senator Kennedy just making that in that news conference just moments ago that you were covering about pulling federal funding from these universities and colleges. Elise Stefanik has already been very vocal saying that's what should happen. Let me read you Title VI and what this is. It is on the books. It is a law. All schools that receive federal funds must comply with Title VI. This law bars discrimination based on shared ancestry, ethnic characteristics, or national origin. Schools that violate the law are at risk of losing their federal funding if they do not comply. This could happen through the education department. It is not.
All right. So, Emily, our reporter William Lajeunesse said something that blew my mind. So Brown University decided to negotiate with the terrorists. And we call them that, at least I do, because they put Jewish stars down on some of these campuses and tell you to step on them, which is effectively telling you that they'd like to kill you immediately. And, oh, by the way, everybody who's standing around, step on this Jewish star. So we know that that's happening on some of these campuses. Negotiating with these people. I mean, what position does that put legally the university in if anything happens? Other students can start to sue, I would imagine.
And worse. If something happens, if we're talking about the violence we're seeing on the left hand of the screen, I mean, there is absolutely no excuse. There's nothing peaceful whatsoever about a lot of these images that we've been subjected to, and certainly not especially to Jewish students of faith. So absolutely, I hope there's some type of accountability. It seems, however, that these academics have been allowed to fester in an insular environment where there has been no consequences because all they do is float from their homes to campus and back, and they foment this kind of discussion. We've talked before about how 100 professors at Columbia signed on to that disgusting letter that the students germinated after the massacre of October 7th, calling it a Hamas military action, right? So this kind of stuff, to them, it's the natural, logical evolution of such. There needs to be accountability. But 2 quick points. Number one, to the outside agitation. Remember, we saw this over 4 years ago and all the riots since, where when we see the booking photos when arrests finally occur, it's everyone standing there in their kaleidoscope with different hair colors, and their places of origin, where their driver's license says they live, is nowhere near where they were setting fire to. Remember the Portland riots?
Right.
They were coming in from other states.
Right.
Seattle, they were coming in from other states, and they certainly in no way looked like the people they purported to represent. And then finally, just remember that campus is a place of education. So I hope the education these protesters are getting now is that there is consequences for when you break policy and break the law and when you are anti-Semitic.
So, just in terms of letting strangers onto a campus where there are some minors, I was 17 when I went to college.
Yes, same.
So, I mean, these universities are opening themselves up to so much, not just people pulling their money out and not wanting to fund them as donors, but also just their student ranks. I wouldn't want to send my kids to a place where I wasn't sure that they'd be safe, but I was sure that the university would do nothing to keep them safe.
Yeah, we've heard there's outside agitators from Glenn Youngkin, Mayor Eric Adams, several of the universities, the list goes on. Let me address the White House, though, for a moment. Growing up, we had a game. It was called Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego? We need a new one, and it's not a game. It's a reality. Where in the world is Joseph Robinette Biden? Look, when the president wants to speak on something, he knows how to speak. Reporters are teaming around the White House. He could put out a statement. President Biden found it within him and his name to put out a statement this morning. I saw it about 5 a.m. about babies being protected in Florida at 6 weeks, about abortion laws in Florida. So he found it within him, under his name, to put that out. He can speak if he wanted to speak. If a president doesn't want to speak, he knows how to not speak. Scurry to Marine One, cowardly, surrounded by your advisors. Don't talk to the reporters. Don't even look their way. Stay silent. And when a president wants to speak but not speak too loudly, he knows how to do that too. How do you do it? You put out a statement from your deputy press secretary. It gets in all the stories, but you as president don't speak, because that, of course, would make your base mad. So what does that leave us with? It leaves us with final solution signs at George Washington University, of course, a reference to the Holocaust, with Hitler chants at UW-Madison, with a young man who said at University of Washington it was shouted at him, go back to the gas chambers. This is happening because of a commander-in-chief who is weak. So don't you ever, left, ever tell me again that Donald Trump is anti-Semitic, as you've been trying to do for 6 years. Look in the mirror. Look in the mirror, President Joe Biden.
A last quick word from you on
Brown?
the politics.
Do you know Brown, Harris, the reason why they're going to have a graduation is because they agreed to have a vote on divesting from Israel.
They negotiated with the terrorists. That was my very point with Emily.
Yeah,
they did this.
So they agreed to have it. So you're going to decide, a bunch of people who are going to be there 4 years are going to decide on the future of the institution, on their investment. Not only can Israel invest in you and for innovation, but you can decide where they're going to invest. That, to me, is absolutely insane, considering no one even cared about this issue prior to 2 or 3 weeks ago, and certainly not prior to October 7th. I think it's absolutely insane for the, but back to your point, it is insane for the White House to think they can get away with not commenting on this, even if they come out. And why are I'm watching Republicans now having a press conference. You pulled from Tom Cotton. Why are Democrats not there? You can't get together on anti-Semitism. You can't get together on anything then.
But you know why they're not there? Because, as Kaylee just pointed out, they probably got one of those surreptitious notes from the deputy press secretary.
There you go.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe you don't show up to that.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.